So in this video today, I'm going to introduce you to NextForm. NextForm is an application that I built which allows you to easily create dynamic UI forms for use in Next Experience. It's well worth checking out the documentation on GitHub, which is quite thorough, and it goes through and explains what the purpose of NextForm is, how it works, and also it has full documentation of the APIs that are needed, as well as some example generator scripts, some processor scripts, and also documentation about the NextForm controller that you'll be using in UI Builder. There's also an accompanying demo application in GitHub, which you can pull into your instance. When you install both of those on your instance, you'll see on the application navigator, you'll now have a NextForm item with NextForms, generators, processors, and also the demo experience. Let's open up the demo experience so you can get a bit of an indication of what NextForm is and what the purpose of it is. If we click on try example 1, now this page is not meant to look pretty, it's meant to really just show the power of NextForm and what it's meant to achieve. So the first thing you'll see here is that you've got some fields on the screen, and one of them is the full width of the form, whereas you've got another few that are separated into two different columns. We can see what screen we're on, so we're on screen of 1 of 3. We've also got the buttons that allow us to navigate between the screens, so we can click next, for example. And there's also lots of field types available, so you'll see on this screen we've got access to a date time field, we've got choice fields, we've got currency fields, got a lot of different types of fields. And we've also got on the final screen the big process button that appears. So let's have a look at the building blocks of a NextForm. So if we go to the NextForms item from the application navigator, we can see here is the sample NextForm, which is the one that I just showed you then. But let's go and create a new one. So I'll give this one the name Dylan's NextForm and just hit save on that now. If we go into generators, we can go and create a generator for this NextForm as well. So going back to the documentation quickly though, you'll see that the first thing that happens is there's 3 different building blocks. We've got the generator. The generator is that thing that actually creates the form. So it defines what fields are on the form and how it's split up into different screens and how the sections work. Then you've got NextForm, which is the thing that links it to the form component on the UI Builder page. And that actually, renders the form. And then finally, you've got a processor as well. So once the form has been completed and you click the process button or click a submit button at the end, the processor script will run and it'll be supplied with the values that the user completed in the form. And from that script, you can do anything like use glide record to create a record in a table on the ServiceNow instance, or to initiate a flow, for example, to go off and do some kind of integration or automation with some other external system. So let's go back to the generator record now, and I'll just give this one the name Dylan's generator. And again, in the documentation, you'll see it's got an example of what this generator script is meant to do, and it must return an instance of the NextForm object. So let's just do that first and just go return new NextForm. And that's pretty much it. That's all we need to do for this generator script to work. The problem is that at the moment it's just a blank NextForm. It's got no fields on it. The next thing we need to do is, you can see further down in the documentation, it's got a description of the NextForm API. And the NextForm API uses a technique called method chaining. And you'll have seen this before when you're using glide record, when you go, new glide record, and then you go add query, and then you add another query, and then you add a different filter, and then you call query on it and call next on it. That's called method chaining. And so what you'll see is we've got a few different methods we can call on the NextForm object. We've got add screen, add row, add column, and add field. So let's go and use these now. And the first thing we'll do is we'll just go add screen. The screen is the main building block of a NextForm. Oops, we're going to put a dot there as well. The next thing we'll do is we'll do a add row and then add column on that row. And then obviously now that we've got our column, we can actually put some fields inside it. So we can go add field. So the add field function, it accepts a next field, as you can see. And what we can do, we can go and create that right now. Go just up here, var my field equals new next field. And you'll see that when you're creating the next field, you've got 4 different options you can pass to it. You've got type, so that's the type, for example, string, integer, choice. You've got a label, that's how it'll appear to the user on the form. You've got a name, which is an internal name for that field, so that when you get access to it in the processor, you know how to get the value of it or the display value. And then you've got the 4th parameter, which is options. And options allow you to pass additional options that are specific to the type of field you're using. So for example, a string field, you can set the maximum length of that string field. By default, it's 40, but you may want to expand it to make the field a lot bigger. And a choice field, obviously you need to supply choices to it. So that's another option you can supply as part of that 4th parameter. In this case though, we're not actually going to use the 4th parameter, but we'll give this one, we want to make this one a string. We'll give it the label, what's your name? And the internal the internal name will call your name. And then all we need to do is just pass that in to the add field function. And that's basically it. So now if we save this, we have our generator creating, and all we need to do is add that onto a UI builder page. Another thing we need to do as well is we need to create a processor. So once the user submits the NextForm, we want that NextForm to be processed. So we can just call this one Dylan's processor. We can see we get access to NF data. NF data is an object that contains those unique internal names for the fields, and on that you can access the value or the display value of that field. You can scroll down on the documentation, we can see an example of that. Let's just go and put this in there. So I'll copy that now and paste that in. And obviously this one here is talking about family name, so we'll just call it the user's name was, and we can just call this one your name because that's what the internal name we gave to that field. Obviously in here we could put anything in here. We could put a do a glide record. We could do multiple glide records. We could call a flow or an integration hub action, or anything really that you can do in a script field. In the future we may expand this field to make this record to be more capable. So instead of having to write code, maybe you can just point it directly at a flow, for example. Let's just save that now. And let's go back into our NextForm that we created earlier and just hook both of those things up. So just type in Dylan here to hook that one up, and this one here as well. So it's as simple as that. So let's go into UI Builder now and actually create that interface. Open up the NextForm demo experience, the one that comes with the NextForm demo application. And let's go and create a new page in here. Just give this one the name NF test. And the first thing we want to do is to add the form component onto the page. When we do that, we'll be prompted with some presets. You'll have probably already seen the record form preset that comes out of box, but NextForm includes its own preset, which when we choose this, it'll automatically add the NextForm controller onto the page as well as a data resource. So let's click on that and we'll supply it with the sysID of that NextForm we created here. So let's just copy that sysID and paste that in and click use. Let's save that. And already we can see we've got a form. I'll just make a few little changes to this page to make it a little bit prettier. So let's just turn off bare so it's got a bit of padding around it. And we can also go into the form options and turn off, remove left padding. So what you'll see as well is that all of these options for the form component are locked now. You can always override them if you want by clicking the unlock button. But this is the power of the preset. It allows you to automatically bind the properties of the form widget to the NextForm data, the controller. And inside the controller has all the logic that you would want to do with pagination and to do with processing and to do with retrieving the data. All that's really needed is that it gets supplied with the sysID of that NextForm record. So let's go and save that once more and just press the open to test it out outside of UI Builder. There it is. We've got our form, or at least the basics of it. So let's add a few more fields onto this form. Let's go back to our generator script. And maybe we can add another screen maybe. So let's, after this add field, we'll go add screen. To add our second screen, we'll go add row again, add column, and add field. And let's give this one, we'll just do it directly in line here instead. We'll just go new X, S, and C, and F, next field. And we'll give this one the name type string again. And we'll give it the label, tell me about yourself. And then the internal name will be description. And then let's pass something in as the fourth parameter here. Let's pass in max length. And we'll give this one maybe 4,000 characters long. And let's save that now. And if we go back to our NextForm, we'll see that actually nothing's going to change yet because we still don't have a way to get to the next page yet. So this is where NextForm gives you full freedom to create this page as you want. The form will be, locked down to the way a form should look like, but how you get through those pages or how you submit is completely up to you. So let's go and create, after this form, we'll just go and create a component after. Let's just add a container. And inside the container, we'll add a button. And let's just go and put this button over on the right-hand side of the page. And we can just call this one next. And what you'll notice is when we go and actually bind an event to this button, the button clicked event, you'll see that NextForm, because we've got that control on the page now, we can actually interact with it using the regular UI Builder event system. So you can see that there's a number of different events that exist on this NextForm controller, including go to the next screen. So let's just click that one, add that one, and it's as simple as that now. We can click save, and if we go back to our regular screen, we'll see that next button there, and if we click next, you can see we now have our second field. So let's go back to our generator now, and let's add another column. And let's add, for example, maybe a HTML field. Oops, I've got there we go. Add field, new, and we'll give this one the type HTML. Go please type in some HTML. Give it the internal name HTML, and that's pretty much all we need. Let's save that now. Let's go back to our NextForm and reload it. And when we go to our second screen, we can now see we actually have a dual column layout. So we have, because we've put in the generator, we've put add row, and then we've got 2 columns as part of that row that we created. It's actually split it up over into 2 different columns. The next thing we might want to do is process the form. We want to submit it to the server and allow server script, our processor script, to actually submit it and do its thing. So let's go back to UI Builder now and add another button. But let's call this one Submit. And we'll give this one a primary, so it's an obvious submit action. And again, we'll go to our button clicked and we'll use the process event. Let's click on add. So as I said before, the process event will take all the fields of this NextForm across all the screens, submit it to the server, and then run that processor script and pass in those values into the processor script to allow you to do what's necessary with them. Click save on that. And one other thing we need to do as well is, once it's been submitted, we need to take some kind of action. We don't want to just leave the user on the form. So let's go into our controller, our NextForm controller, to the events tab, and we'll see we've got a number of events available on this as well, including processing completed, processing started, loading completed, and the field value changed. These are all documented on the GitHub documentation here as to what they mean. But in our case, we want to, when processing is completed, we want to maybe redirect to a different page. So let's go to link to destination. We'll bind that to link to destination. Let's choose the destination, and we'll just choose one of our pages we've got. Let's go to the home page, back to the home page, and click add and save. Done. So now let's refresh our NextForm page again, and let's type some stuff into it. So what is your name? Click next. Tell me about yourself. Hello. Please type in some HTML, and let's click submit. And we can see we've now been taken back to that home page. If we go into you'll remember from the processor that we created it with it's just going to log the data as a string, and then also it's going to say the user's name was this. So let's go and look in the logs now. And there it is. You can see the user's name and it's output that. And it's also, you can see there, it's also output the data to the logs, including me, where I typed in some HTML and I typed in hello, for example. So you can see really the power and the simplicity, how easy it is to create that form. We didn't have to create anything in the back end. We didn't have to create any ACLs or any kind of security or any of that additional complexity that comes with back end, creating tables or creating record producers or creating catalog items. The one last thing we may want to do is maybe on the final page, we actually don't want to show the next button. And on the first page, we don't want to show the submit button. So what we can do is we can click here and go into the component visibility, and we can set up a script here, or actually we don't even need to set up a script. We can just go, let's go and use the script. Well, you'll see first down here, you've got in the NextForm object, you've got a lot of data that you can access which will help you to build this UI. So if we don't want to submit, or if we're not able to submit yet, well, then maybe we want to disable, maybe instead of dealing with visibility, we just want to disable those buttons. So you can see you've got this disabled field here. And you've got on the NextForm data, you've got can process. There it is, can process. So at the moment it's set to true. So let's change this to disabled. We want to just go if data api.data.nextform.can process is false. If it's false, that you can't process, then we want it to be disabled. And then also maybe we can go into this other button and we can hide it. So let's change the component visibility. Hide component, and in this case we want to hide it if you can't go next. If you can't go next, if you're already on the last page, you can't go next. So let's go and edit this and just go api.data.nextform.can go next. And if you can't go next, then we want to hide the component. Let's click save. And there we go. You can see our buttons have already started to have that interactivity. So if we click on next here, you can see the next button disappeared, and now we're finally on the submit button, and we can type some stuff in. We can type some stuff in for the HTML, submit, and then it takes us back to the home page. So this is obviously a very basic example, but hopefully this gives you an idea of the power of NextForm and the potential in the future as we develop this out further, and how it really does easily let you create dynamic UI forms for use in Next Experience. Thank you.